The boys watch the girls while the girls watch the boys who watch the girls go by. Eye to eye, they solemnly convene to make the scene, which is the name of the game. Watch a guy or watch a dame on any street in town.
È interprete e produttore del film, e con la collega Sandra Hebron per questo incontro con voi, con la stampa. Lascio la parola a Sandra Hebron per la prima domanda.
Thank you, Laura. Hello, everyone. Richard, I wanted to ask you, in your capacity both as producer and actor in the film, I get a sense that this has been a real passion project for you, a labour of love that you've been planning for some time. I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about how you were able to bring it to the screen now.
I have my fellow producers actually are in the back, and they always laugh because I do the long version of this or the short version. So do you prefer the long version or the short version?
Short one. Corta.
The little one. Okay, medium. You get the medium version of this. So there was a script that was sent to me over 10 years ago, and it had the seeds of this movie in it, and it wasn't a situation that I felt I could make it yet. It still needed a lot of work, but there was something quite extraordinary about it. And in fact, the script had been written in the late 80s, which is now 30 years ago? Yeah. Close to 30 years ago. But surprisingly, the issues that this script dealt with, even most of the details were exactly the same 10 years ago as they were 25, 30 years ago. So I couldn't get it out of my mind, frankly, and I ended up buying the script and had a very good idea of what to do with the script. But I was having trouble communicating that, and there was a book that came out in New York by a man named Cadillac Man, and it was Life on the Streets of New York. And he had written this with a kind of peasant poetry that was deeply real and deeply emotional, but very dry. It was factual. This is what happened. This is how it happened, without any editorializing. And it was that was exactly what I was trying to communicate when in my own mind to myself of how to make this movie time out of mind. So I quite by accident ran into Oren Moverman at an event, and we had known each other before because he had written several scripts that I had admired, and he had written one of my movies, I'm Not There, the Todd Haynes movie. I had co-written that with Todd, so we were friends already. But I mentioned the script to him, and I said, "Look, Oren, you're the guy who should do this rewrite on this. But I know you're way too busy and way too expensive, and you couldn't possibly do this." But he said, "Send me the script anyhow." I sent it to him, and he responded the same way that I did, and we just pretty much dove in, and that was.
Ha imparato qualcosa da questa esperienza che non conosceva?
You know, I had done a lot of research on this, so I had been around the homeless shelters and been on the streets for the 10 years that I was thinking about this film. So there wasn't anything that surprised me in terms of that. What was surprising was the experience of being on the streets. And there was a moment. Frankly, we had very little money to shoot this. We had 21 days to shoot the entire film. Very short. And we had a concept, and the concept was the footprint of the movie would be invisible. I would be out on the streets most of the time. And we had very long zoom lenses that were capturing the movie. But no one saw the cameras. They were either under man-at-work tents, or they were in storefronts across the street, or they were on the roofs of buildings very far away. And we didn't really know if it was going to work, if it was possible that I could be on the streets and not recognized, and the whole illusion of the movie destroyed. So we did a test day, and usually a test day is just to test costumes and makeup and that kind of thing, but in fact we were testing the whole concept of whether or not this movie was going to work. And this test day was out in Astor Place in Greenwich Village, and it's a very active place. And It's a lot of moviegoers, it's people who are involved with culture. It wasn't going to another planet, it was going right into the center of New York and potentially our audience for this movie. And I frankly didn't know what was going to happen, but I was in character and I looked in character. And the reality is that no one paid any attention to me whatsoever. And we were shooting digitally, so we had very long takes. We shot the first take, I think it was like 45 minutes of me panhandling on a very busy street corner in New York. No one made eye contact with me. Now for me, as this 5 minutes became 20 minutes, became 45, it was a very profound experience for me. One personally as an actor and someone who is known, but from the other side of really feeling what it is to be worse than invisible. It's really like being toxic in a way. There's a mysterious kind of anger, I think, starts to come out in people from many blocks away, where there's a radiation of failure that comes off of how we perceive homeless people. The tradition that I come from, the Buddhist tradition, the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, there's a tradition of begging, what we would call begging. But it's a peculiar thing because the motivation is radically different than what normally someone thinks or motivates oneself begging. One normally thinks of a beggar as someone who's really looking for money for themselves, or food for themselves, or enough money to buy booze or drugs or whatever it may be, but it's something for themselves. From a monk's point of view, they're offering the possibility for someone to make an offering and create positive merit, which eventually will build up in the mind stream. Now, I must say that there was a certain mixture of those two things in my own experience there, because I wasn't looking for money, personally. I was an actor out there. And we as filmmakers were making an offering, a possibility, right, to everyone who was in range of that camera to create some positive merit. So from my side, it was radically different than what someone who's really on the street looking for money and looking for food, you know. And there's no way I would experience that because I don't need the money and I don't need food. So the whole experience is going to be radically different. And I'll never probably be able to be in those shoes. You know, I'm very fortunate that way. It's the future of serious filmmaking in general. Certainly for me, probably. I realize that all the scripts that I'm interested in these days are small independent films. And I see there's a range there of, I don't know, somewhere between $5 million and $11 million, somewhere in that range. And the peculiar thing of our time now is this radically's been changing over the last 10, 11, 12 years. That these kind of films that used to be studio films, they were part of the program of all the major studios, are not made by studios anymore. So we have to find another way of making them, where we don't make a great deal of money. Nobody does. When I'm sitting down, we have producers of the film down here right now, and they can validate that statement that no one is making any money on these kind of movies. So, a story. You know what's really funny? When you're pitching a story now to studios, you've got to find a way to pitch it and make it not sound like it's a drama. If it has the D word, you're not going to get any financing. So you have to find a way to somehow make it sound like a romance or a thriller or a comedy or a combination of those things. But if the D word gets in there somewhere, it's not going to find any financing. So it is the independent world that is an independent financier. Is there something flying around here? There's a bat in here? A bat? Well, is that a sign or something?
Richard, possibile che nessuno l'abbia mai riconosciuta mentre stava girando?
Hey Richard, how you doing, man? I kept walking. It wasn't like, what are you doing here? Hey Rich, how you doing, man? and kept walking. So I thought about that later, and I realized that, you know, the black experience in New York, and maybe the whole world, is they're more alive in the moment. They're more alive to what's happening around them. And then the obvious reasons, and probably many not obvious reasons of why that is, but they're more, us white people are very much in our little capsules. And we, especially with the cell phones now, you know, we walk around like this in our little vehicles, you know, that are very hermetically sealed. And all we know is we're going from here, and we know our next spot. And we rarely notice anything between here and there. And I was noticing that on the streets, how sealed off almost everyone is these days, especially, even more so with the machines. Engaging. But I'm finding something much more universal when I watch this movie. That it's that very primitive and very sensitive and very profound sense of yearning, I think, that we all have to belong somehow. And even those people, when we walk around in our capsules, there is still that yearning of how do I fit in? Where's my place? Where's my home? Where is my community? Where are the people that I can trust in my world? And I don't see any difference on that level between people on the street and all of us. And frankly, that's what I find so moving about this story and why I couldn't get it out of my head. It wasn't just because of the mechanics of a homeless person. It's all of us. And in this world now, certainly there are homeless people, but there are displaced people everywhere on this planet now. There are refugees, displaced people, homeless people. People who are looking for a home, and even trying to define what that sense of home is. What is home? Is it my village? Is it my country?
Siamo appena usciti dalla conferenza stampa di Richard Gere che ha presentato Time Out of Mind. Con noi il collega Francesco Gallo dell'ANSA. E allora, come ti è parso questo film?
Beh, il film è comunque è bizzarro, diciamo, perché Richard Gere ha da sempre avuto la tradizione di essere un vincente, ha fatto personaggi importanti, non certo personaggi da loser. Qui è un barbone che tra l'altro parla molto poco, non dice nulla sul suo passato e si vede soltanto che si aggira per questa New York insieme ad altri barboni come lui, cercando di sopravvivere. Si capisce che la moglie gli è morta di cancro, che ha una figlia che però non vuole più vederlo e diciamo che il film non indulge in nessun modo ad essere appetibile a un pubblico, cioè è un film molto, diciamo, scarno, triste, che lui ha prodotto. E la contraddizione è forte perché vedere un Richard Gere così, al limite con queste mani curate, che interpreta un barbone, è un po' una contraddizione. È un film che però a cui lui crede, che appunto ha prodotto e che forse diciamo, aiuta il suo spirito buddista, cioè è nella tradizione della sua religiosità.
Grazie Francesco Gallo e alla prossima.